The 1927 film Metropolis, directed by Fritz Lang, provides impressive images of the future city described in part in Lasswitz's utopic to the absolute zero of existence, combined with what he had seen as well, what Lang had seen while visiting New York. The opening scene of skyscrapers and airovelocipedes in a bustling future city are directly sort of related to Lasswitz's vision, but what he doesn't provide, what Lasswitz doesn't provide, is that darker side of the future city, the clearly defined classes of the upper and the lower classes of the laborers. Lang began his career making films focusing on the exploits of a criminal mastermind, the notorious Dr. Mabuse, and its spider organization. So his interest in the darker criminal sides of psychology explains how the set design and several characters were split by technology and their desire to function in the lower and upper worlds, and they're also given these sort of heroic and villainous flavors. The film was not very successful at the time it was released, but its visual style has since influenced a range of dystopic science fiction films that can be seen in the design of C-3PO, The Matrix, Blade Runner, Dark City, The Hudsucker Proxy, Minority Report, Things to Come, Logan's Run, Brazil, and Tim Burton's Batman films, to name just a few. In Blade Runner, it's not just the opening of the 1982 film Blade Runner that is visually inspired by Metropolis, but the way in which the entire world functions is an imitation of those upper and lower worlds of that same film. The central piece is the corporate megastructure that towers over everything, the modern Tower of Babel in Lang's film. The doppelganger, those who hide their uncanniness by imitating human life, are hunted by the Blade Runner, Deckard. And it is Deckard's love interest, Rachel, who comes from the underworld that drives the plot along. So eventually, just as with Hoffman's Nathaniel, Deckard begins to doubt his own humanity until we know that his memories, too, have been implanted. He is not human. So, in popular culture, music videos have tapped into the strong visual imagery of the film and of course it's also a simple story to make quick points and associations in collages that these music videos often present. Artists who have made use of the imagery in their videos include Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Kylie Minogue, Freddie Mercury, Madonna, and many others. Including the risque dance sequences that offered audiences at the time these scandalous, voyeuristic musical numbers that were part of Evil Maria's scheme to divide and disrupt the order of the upper world and foment revolution from below. Well, those are also copied in many of these videos, such as in Madonna's Express Yourself. The style and design of the robot also inspired collections by a variety of clothing designers and photo shoots gracing the covers of Vogue magazine and among others. And the images of the mad scientist and the crackling electrodes, they made their way into Frankenstein and many other films with that mad scientist character. It was the special effects of the film that had the greatest impact perhaps on filmmaking, using techniques such as forced perspective to make things appear larger, crowds bigger, models that were used as cities, or using what has become known as the Schuften process, where a plate of glass was used to indicate where actors were to be placed on a miniature set, and then a mirror would provide the angle that connected the miniature set with those of the actors that were standing several feet away but appeared smaller in the mirror, and then also then at that miniature set so that they would appear as the right size. The film did not always inspire the noblest of minds either. The prophetic images of the dictator ruling over drone-like workers sapped of all will and energy, well, that was rather pleasing to people like Hitler. The French film historian Georges Sardou stated that as he arrived at the Mauthausen concentration camp to work in the quarries, he trudged up the ramp, he looked at the rows of emaciated inmates all in identical gray uniforms and shaved heads, and he turned to a fellow prisoner and asked, "Do you know Metropolis?" The stark contrast in society and the images of the zombified worker of the lower world moving robotically without will are forced to measure time and pressure to exhaustion will also eventually push Fader towards having this allegorical vision of what he is witnessing. So in this vision, he sees the workers being led into this great mouth of machinery that eats them. And soon this transforms these workers into slaves before his eyes, being sacrificed to this Moloch. The film provides a stark vision of the cost of luxury for those above at the expense of the health of those below, but offers a very weak answer. So the artist that can heal the wound between the two parties, the two worlds, it's in more likelihood, actually, it's the artist that works to placate the lower caste from rebellion, to distract and subdue them in service of the wealthy, or in service of the upper class. So while the basic story is simplistic and fraught with problems, the visual imagery has found a strong afterlife in popular culture and dystopian and steampunk science fiction films since the 1980s. So take a look at the scenes provided, and if you have the time, I would highly recommend watching Blade Runner, as it incorporates plot points from Our Sandman with the visual imagery of Metropolis in a unique and impressive way.